Alright, hello there YouTube. Hello there my art class. How are y'all doing? And today we're going to be talking about art and anime and the history of anime in the United States. We all know there's a lot of anime out there, and the three that I'm going to be talking about are going to be a manga called Death Note that actually aired on an American television station called Cartoon Network, and late at night, Cartoon Network plays kind of like a show for more mature audiences, 14 and up, called Adult Swim. And on Adult Swim, they sometimes show anime, and it's kind of cool. That's kind of how I got into anime. So that's kind of how I think anime affects people, and especially like in the 80s and 90s, I believe a lot of people were a lot of people were really influenced by manga and anime just from watching Adult Swim and another show on Cartoon Network called Toonami. They both air at night, and yeah, like that's where they play. That's where I watched all my anime. To be honest, I watched it all on Toonami and Adult Swim, so I guess I have more of a mainstream perspective. But I like. I'm kind of picky with the anime I like. I guess I like more realistic kind of anime. I don't really like the kind of gets a little too over the top with the crazy powers and things like that. I mean, I like crazy powers, but I like it to be kind of more, more like realistic in a certain way. Like I don't like it. I don't like when the power scaling is all over the place. So, and there's I could go over some examples later in the video, and we'll see. We'll go over that. So just wait. Just watch. Just wait. First of all I want to say is that the art and action on these manga is amazing. Like you can tell that the mangaka, otherwise known as the creator of the manga, they work really hard, like night and day probably. They probably work so much. There's actually a guy on YouTube, a YouTuber called For Never World, and he just makes a bunch of videos about how these mangaka work so hard that they literally are dying. I mean, that's pretty crazy. I think like you have to work so hard to make all this art, because art takes a long time. It doesn't just you don't just draw a bunch of like really good art overnight, and if you do, it doesn't come out very well. And you have to have a lot of skill and talent to be able to do this, and that's why I have a lot of respect for these artists, because they put a lot of time, and all their like hard work really shows off in their art. And I think that's something that they should really be proud about. So basically, I've been pretty much just just I checked this book out from the library. I got it right here. It is, you know, it's called Japanese Animation from Painted Scrolls to Pokemon by Bridget Koyama Richard. And I found this at the San Luis Festival Library, and it's actually a really interesting book, and it talks about how basically in the beginning there was like in the 16th century there was these scrolls that basically are kind of like the precursors for modern art. I mean, modern anime and manga. Like it pretty much was like the first forms of anime and manga ever found in China and in Japan. And apparently Japan is like a culture that like absorbs a lot of cultures from other cultures. So they like kind of just take what they absorb from other cultures and kind of incorporate it into their art in anime and manga. And I thought that was pretty interesting how a lot of like people that are actually famous today, like a lot of famous like manga artists, they all acknowledge that there's a connection between the old scrolls and modern art and manga, and how like they're kind of connected. And yeah, I think that's kind of cool. Like it was around even back in the days, and it's around today because it's like a part of human nature to want to create art and tell a story at the same time. So here's one of the first manga that I've been reading. It's called Naruto, and I've actually been watching this anime since it first came out, kind of in the US. It came out on Cartoon Network, and I gotta say, like, I have been missing out on some gorgeous animation, or, I mean, gorgeous artwork. It's just, the artwork is really good. I mean, I have to say, it almost looks better than the anime, even though the anime usually does do a really good job adapting the manga. Like, seeing the art in the actual book itself is amazing. Like, I'm just like, I'll try to show you a little bit. Oh, man, that is just really, really detailed. Like, you can tell, like, how long must it take an artist to just color in the black hair? Because apparently that's like something that they all gripe about, having to color in the black hair, because it just takes a long time. But man, there's so much detail that goes into each little thing. Even like in the background, the drawings and the trees, like, even though the trees, he's kind of using like a crosshatch. He's kind of just like using like just simple lines on the trees, and it all just looks amazing. Like, the trees are just kind of just like scribbles, and he manages to do a really good job of bringing out the imagery. And yeah, it's just the way everything is just laid out, the facial expressions, the drama, the intensity. I love everything about it. It's really good. So the three animes that I'm gonna be talking about is Naruto, Death Note, and Bleach. And pretty much their names are kind of self-explanatory once you get to know the show. Naruto is named after the protagonist. Uh, Death Note is named after the object, which the book that I've been reading, Japanese Animation by Bridget Koyama Richard, actually talks about how Japanese culture tends to use a lot of animism, which is where they like to give inanimate objects and spirits or just spiritual things life, and they like to give life to things and, like, make it so things have like a personality of their own. And in the book, it actually talks about yokai, which are actually like spirits from objects or ghosts, which I guess like they believe that once you own an object for a certain amount of time, it will come to life. So usually they try to get rid of the object before it comes to life, and sometimes the object will like come to life before they can throw it out and like haunt them. It's actually kind of funny, but they're usually seen as like kind of like innocent creatures that just kind of like a kind of a mischievous side to them. And they actually do a parade where they kind of just walk around and just kind of parade and just dance around until daylight. When that's when they pretty much run off and hide and wait till the next year to do it again. Pretty interesting. Okay, here are notable some notable shows that I'm pretty sure every kid is gonna know. Every kid that grew up in the 80s or 90s. Pokemon. I'm wearing my little Pikachu sweater right now. Pokemon, he's trying to lift a dumbbell. There's Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, I'm pretty sure every kid has heard of at least Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, come on. But those are just examples of how, anime has just like it's become like a really big social thing. It's like a social phenomenon. It's part of pop culture. It was part of subculture before, but now it's part of like pop culture, and it's like really become mainstream. I think that's kind of cool. It's nice to see different things out in the media, and I think it's cool to just embrace other cultures and like just open your mind to new ideas. If you want to know some examples of some cool shows that were influenced by Japanese anime, there was a one that came out like in 2006, I believe, and it's called Teen Titans. That show was really cool, and the anime on that show was on point. Like, I got really hooked into that show just because the fight sequences and the artwork was really good. Another one was on Adult Swim again, and that one was called The Boondocks, and it was a pretty funny show. You know, it was just about like just like a black family and like all the funny adventures they would have, and like just all the, like funny, all the stereotypes you can think of, and like just kind of poked fun at like culture and like made us like evaluate the way we see things, and like kind of just brought out things that people don't really like to think about. And I thought it was a really cool show. And it was also influenced, by anime, and like it had a really like anime style animation. And I thought it looked really good, to be honest. It was like really well drawn, and that's part of like what I liked about it. Just seeing the facial expressions, like that's something that always wowed me. Just seeing how well this facial expressions could be portrayed through artwork, just through drawings. I was like, wow, how could a drawing portray so much emotion and art, like so much detail, and like I don't know, just emotion and like detail, and like you kind of just feel the presence behind the character. You can almost feel their energy, and this is just through a drawing, and I'm just like, wow, that is crazy. All right, so I'm gonna go and tell you what each manga I'm covering is about. So Naruto is pretty much it's like a ninja manga. It deals about like kind of like ninjas, and but not your typical ninjas. These ninjas can like use their chakra, which is like their like their physical and like spiritual energy of their body, to create different kind of elemental attacks, like water water type attacks, fire type attacks, wind type attacks, lightning attacks, just based on different elements. And it's actually really cool because they get really creative with the tactics and the way they use their body energy, like their chakra. Like they can use their chakra to do a lot of different things. Like for example, in one example, like they learn how to climb a tree without using their hands by directing all their chakra to their feet, so that they like kind of like their feet just stick to the tree using the chakra, and they can just walk up the tree without using their hands. And then there's like other things where like some people can pretty much are born with like these genetic advantages called Kekkei Genkai, which basically gives them these like bloodline traits where they have special abilities that they can only inherit through their blood and their genetics. So it's only passed down in their family, and that gets played very much in the story in the form of one of the other main characters in the show. His name is Sasuke Uchiha, and he has a special ability called the Sharingan, which is like a special eye ability, which lets him copy his enemies' attacks and read their movements before they even know what they're gonna do. And it's like a really overpowered kind of like move, and it kind of just makes him a genius, and he just kind of just coasts through the story, and he just coasts through life really easy. And at the same time, the other protagonist, well, he's kind of like Sasuke Uchiha is kind of the antagonist in one way, because he starts out as the protagonist's best friend, and then he becomes kind of bad. And the main protagonist, which is the main hero of the show, his name is Naruto Uzumaki. He's the one who's like always trying to do. He's just an average protagonist. He's like a loser in the beginning, and he ends up being like a champion at the end. And he pretty much just like is the overall hard work overcomes all. You just work hard, you try hard, you keep your attitude up, and eventually everything works out for you. And he starts out he starts out really bad. He has a really hard childhood. Like his parents just like sacrifice themselves to save his village where he lives, and the village doesn't even like aren't even like they don't even know that who his parents are, and they just pretty much hate him because his parents have to steal a monster called the nine-tailed fox inside of him. And basically, all the villagers just hate him for having the monster inside of him. They don't even know that like his dad was the leader of the clan of the village, which is called the Hokage. And basically, he's just hated by everyone, and he doesn't even know. Nobody even tells him about his family or anything. He just kind of like, he just kind of grows up with not knowing anything. Just everyone just hates him, and he pretty much just overcomes all those challenges and ends up becoming a hero that everybody respects because he stays positive and he tries hard. And that's something that we can all like, it's like a life lesson for everyone. Something that we can all look at and, just try to be better people in the end.